What up, players? It's time for another episode of Mr. YouTube's Board Game University. Today we're talking captain, cap, captains of industry. It's the latest in my capitalist fantasies series. Really exciting. I think I'm on the right track because I think some kind of otherworldly being is after me. I almost shit myself at the gym yesterday. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. Things are happening. Anyway, that's too much information, more than you asked for, but that's the quality content you come to me for. Okay, so let's pull up the Prezzo here. Let me find it. All right, we got PowerPoint. We got board. Oh yeah, here we go. All right. Captains. Ooh, I got to turn myself off. Ooh, watch out. I'm out of here. Okay. Ooh. All right. Captains of Industry. So this is a game designed by Michael R. Keller. I think there's another Michael Keller in game design. This is a different one. This guy made two, I think, pretty interesting games. This is one of them. Maybe I'll do one on the other one sometime, though I think this is the more interesting of the pair. So we're doing my capitalism series here again. Once again, you're being denied stonks. So recap. We've been through this before with my videos on Kutnahora and other exciting games. We've got, in capitalism, you've got the forms of production. You got capital, which is stuff, trucks, rocks, money. You've got labor, guys doing the work. You got land, green goop. We're back. Tell me if you've seen this before. So, this is the Capitalist Fantasy Series. Redux. All right, so Captains of Industry is what I would describe, whereas Kutnahora had kind of a planned economy. This is the first in this series where we're going to be kind of talking unplanned economies. So let's switch back here. All right, get me out of the center here. So what do I mean by that? Let's start, and I'm going to give you. I actually can kind of give a pretty full rules overview of this game because it's not too complicated. Also, if you like a game called Container, which is a pretty famous unplanned economy game, I think this is perhaps maybe the superior version of this kind of system. So what we have here is gears. Here's a gear, and we've got smaller gears, or various things within the gears. So the way this game works is most of what you're going to be doing is starting these. We could describe them as firms, production sectors, whatever you want to call them. So this, for example, is a farm. When you start it, it will, if you're able to pay the building costs, it will generate, let's say I'm orange. Upon its creation, it generates 2 pieces of corn. And then in subsequent turns, the player who has control of this firm will be able to run it and generate more corn. Now, this game follows a pretty reasonable and explicable supply and demand system. So let's do another example. So the way this would work is, let's say green player decides to start this steel foundry. They're going to create some steel. So they do that up there. This builds too. There's no build cost here, so they don't have to buy anything. But in this game, typically whenever you're doing, with a few exceptions, with most actions, when you do them, you're going to price the goods that you create, or all of your goods, depending on the action. So, for instance, green produces these 2 goods, and they set the price at, let's say, 7. So now, when another player comes along and wants to do something using that steel, so for instance, orange wants to make the farm, You see the cost is steel. Orange, to make their farm, they have to buy that steel, and that steel is going to cost 7. This game has a little bit of like fixed stuff where when you build a building or when you buy stuff, you are not allowed to choose which goods you buy. You buy the least expensive. If there's a tie, you get to choose. But in this case, green is the only person who has steel. So orange will spend $7 giving that to green. And green will take this token showing that it is bought, and that'll be a point for them at the end of the game. And generally speaking, that's pretty much what you're doing. You are trying to build these firms to produce goods. You're trying to fill niches within the market. And all of this is in service of the sort of meat of the game, which is this game has there are 3 ages within the game. You play a indeterminate, that's the word, an indeterminate amount of rounds, because you will flip cards based on how much progress has happened in the game state. And when you flip the 6th one of these city cards, there's a variable amount that get flipped at the end of every round, based on how much real estate development has occurred within the game state, and I'll explain more about that in a sec. But when you flip the 6th one, the age ends, and we do a kind of scoring, because you're not just buying and selling stuff here. What you're doing is you are trying to essentially dominate the 8 production sectors of the game. So there's these consumer sectors. There's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's these durables sectors, which are down here and here. And then there's these energy sectors, which are here and here. Research, which is in the center, is not a sector, so people don't win majorities for that. But at the end so what players are doing is they're trying to become landlords. This game does not offer a critique of landlordism, but it kind of unrealistically, one of the traits of capitalism is that everybody's seeking passive income. Rent-seeking behavior is one of the primary motivating forces within a capitalist system. And for some reason in this game, when you actually build, when you start generating your passive income, it only generates like a piddly $2. So, not that great. But for the purposes of the game, it's necessary to make, real estate not overpowered, so you actually have a competitive game. This isn't a capitalist critique, and it isn't. It's modeling capitalism. These are different things. So, at the end of the age, what you look at is, for instance, this durables market considers the demand from these 2 adjacent places. This consumer market here just considers the demand from this space down here. But I built an example here so you can kind of see how this would work. So it's the end of an age. This durables market, we're going to determine its demand. So in this durables market, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of durable demand. That's what those blue D's are saying, right? So what that means is there are 5 goods that this market is going to buy. So the idea is you're building real estate here, and the people create the demand for various types of goods. In this case, steel and gears for some reason. It's a little abstract. So what that means is that there's 5 goods to be sold here, and then you see there's a lot of goods in here. So what we determine is, in order of who gets to sell the most, the lowest price gets to sell the most. So of the 5 demand, orange eats up 4 of it because their price is the lowest. It's 3. So this game has a novel way of determining ties, which I like. So here it means, so there's only 1 good left to be sold. Blue and purple both have enough, so you increase the demand. There's only 1 good left to be sold, but you increase it so everybody gets to sell. For some reason, capitalism is fair in this game. So what that means is, even though there was only 5 demand, we increased it to 6. So both of these people get to sell stuff. And then, we toss those aside. And now this is the final. So what will happen is, this player will get 3 times 4. So they'll get $12, and each of these people will get $5 for each of their goods. And then the orange player will win a 5-point chit, which is a significant amount of points because they had the majority of goods left over and sold in this sector. So you're kind of competing to win these majority competitions, and it works pretty well. There's interesting competition here, and the reason why this is kind of like the next one in my series here is this is, I think, the first example of an unplanned economy, meaning there are no mechanisms within the game that player balance or keep one player from just running away with the game. Like, you will have to constantly be evaluating this game state and determining who is winning at any given moment. This is often referred to as like player balancing. And I think that's a good way of describing it. Basically, like if I start dominating the lumber markets with my cheap lumber, making a lot of points because people need lumber to do stuff in the game, God, I hope these lines aren't showing up on the screen. Anyway, okay, I'm back. I just was worried about my recorder. Anyway, so there's nothing to stop someone from running away with their low-priced lumber. The other players have to act to do it. The game has some other dimensions to it where you can develop these like research developments that give you special powers and things like that. Overall it's a very solidly constructed system that I think I'm not sure why it didn't become more well known. I think there's just it's kind of, you're also like collecting these. There's it's a lot of like crusty looking white guy stuff here, which is not super sexy. Doesn't really turn the looking at Mr. Mustache here doesn't really get people's imaginations fired up. Yeah, these are cards that you can collect that at the end of the game you get rewarded with points for doing certain things. And they're sometimes people don't like secret stuff like that, but really it doesn't end up typically, I think, deciding the game. I'm sorry, they decided, I guess, to just build a new apartment complex when I started making this video outside, so I hope you can't hear that. But yeah, this is the I think this is a sort of game where we can start kind of making a critique of what these games fantasize about, where we're starting to see that, and this is a relatively structured version of this kind of system. So this is, when we start pulling back some of the regulations and controls on an economy, on a capitalist economy, one that's built around exploitation and getting the most out of every transaction, you start to see problems emerge. When there's no mechanism to control a player from just ruining the game other than other players, you start to run into issues like, what if somebody's not reading the system correctly? What if there's all these things that destabilize this game and this system? And I think ultimately that's what makes these games worth exploring, because I'm going to, I think I've got 2 more videos planned after this one, and you'll just kind of start to see how things really start getting off the rails, the less and less control you have over these systems. But anyway, Captains of Industry, it's great. You can pick it up for probably like $12 on the secondary market. I seriously doubt it will ever be republished. But that would be great if somebody did. So I've also got a few new reviews out if you want to check them out. I just reviewed Purple Haze, just a very masturbatory game about the Vietnam War that, frankly, I found disgusting. So if you want to check that out, you can check out my reviews on Meeple Mountain, Thomas Wells. But think that's all I got for this. Yeah, until next time.